All right, looks like we're about ready to get started. It is the top of the hour, and you are right now an awesome attendee to the second ever MSP Minds Live. My name is Ari Sherbel. I'm the lead evangelist at Atera, joined with the one and awesome only Isaac, who is the customer success manager at Atera. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm great, excited, ready to get started. So much to talk about, so much wisdom to be shared. Just excitement all around.
It is very exciting because everybody here is going to learn from two MSP IT pros how to grow any MSP business. We're joined with none other than Craig Sharp. Craig, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We're excited to hear what that background is all about, where you are, or where you might be. And Frank Greco. Frank, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fantastic, thank you, and g'day from Australia, where it's 6 degrees and 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning.
This is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a lot of fun because, basically the whole reason why we're doing this, to share with you guys, field tested, this isn't theory, this is real world stuff to help you streamline and grow your MSP business, not ideas, not concepts, but actual case studies, principles, etc., all the things that you're going to hear from Craig and Frank. So without further ado, here's basically what we're going to be covering, what you're going to learn and discover, what Craig and Frank would do differently if they had to start over, which is what a question to be asked at this stage in your career, and for everybody here listening and watching, so many insights. How to price and package your IT services, which is one of the most common questions we get asked about here at Atera. The critical mistakes you must avoid. There are some really fun stories that Craig and Frank are going to be sharing, so you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. How to get clients during COVID-19, that's right, even and especially now. Some epic fail stories from Frank and Craig, which are entertaining and serious and good and beautiful, and we really appreciate your transparency and honesty, and of course the live Q&A. So to get things started, Frank, we'd love to learn a little bit about you. Who are you? Where are you? And are you actually in an airplane?
Well, yeah, thank you for this. Is the only flying I'm ever going to get for at least the next 6 to 8 months. One of my big passions is flying. That's in the 737-800 cockpit, or flight deck rather. It's in the simulator, and I try to do at least 1 to 2 hours a month in the simulator. So if anybody's on an aircraft with me, and both of the guys up front have had the fish, and they ask if anybody can fly the plane, well, I can fly it. Don't know about landing it, but I can certainly fly it. One of my other passions is the IT game. I've been in this game for over 42 years. Run my own company for 25 of those 42 years. I still got some black hair left, and not too many greys kicking in there. Yes, I've taken it right from mainframe right through to the mini environment when that was vogue, right through to the micro environments that we're running these days. It's constant cycle, being server-centric, distributed, server-centric, distributed. So nothing really much has changed. It's just how big the iron is these days is what's changed. So yeah.
Appreciate it. I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us out from the sky. And Craig Sharp, where are you? It looks like you're in a very fun place.
Physically, I'm in Birmingham, well, near Birmingham in the UK, which is in the middle of the UK. Virtually, I am in my signal box. There's a transport theme to today. Frank is very 20th century. I'm very 19th century. So this is a Victorian signal box on a private railway in the UK, and I'm a qualified signalman. For those who are aware of it, the trains have levers and arms which sort of indicate if they can move forward and whether they can proceed. These levers you can see in the background are what you pull to make them say go or stop, and that's what I do when I have days off. So yeah, that's where I virtually am today.
That's pretty cool. And you want to tell us a little bit about your career aside from being a brilliant manager of all things 19th century trains?
Yeah, no problem. So I started running an IT business after I had been I qualified as a teacher. I worked as a project manager in the National Health Service in the UK. I then started my own business, which was very much sort of training, database orientated. That merged into becoming a value-added reseller, a VAR, back in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and then became a very early adopter of what we now call managed services, where we would package services together and provide them as a fixed price, singular solution. And that's then continued from sort of 2005 up to today.
Amazing. And yeah, Isaac.
Lots of experience. So much to be talked about, honestly. There's just years of knowledge. I think this is going to be really great for everyone.
And I think that's the real value. You know, a lot of people, no matter what you're going through in COVID and Corona, at the end of the day, you think that this is going to be forever, or it's going to last, or it's not going to change. And I think one of the biggest insights that I'm really excited to learn from Frank and Craig and everybody is you guys have experience. You've been around. You've probably gone through ups, through downs. So if you had to start your business today, absolutely from scratch, even in COVID, even with everything that's going on in the world, what would you do differently? And maybe for context, how did you get started, and what would you do differently if you had to get started today?
You want to take that one, Frank? Nice, easy one.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. What would I do differently? Well, I probably would distribute my eggs across many, many different baskets. Not a good idea to get too many clients in the one particular vertical. If, for example, like currently, we do a hell of a lot in the hospitality arena. With a lot of clients in that arena and nobody traveling, there's nobody at the hotels. Hotels don't have any money to spend, therefore your projects sort of dwindle down to virtually nothing. So you really need to keep a really good spread and be cognizant of the fact that you can be an expert in a particular area, but just spread your load or spread your risk out over many areas. And that will benefit you going on. If you do have a bit of a downturn, like we are at the moment, it will help. So pretty well, that's what I would do.
Craig, how do you feel about that? But not diversifying, not putting all your eggs in a basket. What would you do differently if you had to get started today?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think ultimately it's about spreading across different verticals. It's also about spreading across different sizes of companies. So I think a lot of people have a desire to work with really large companies because they have a really a sort of a sense that will bring them lots of money and lots of opportunity, and that's great. My experience is that you're probably better to have a smaller number of larger companies and a higher number of smaller companies. That means that if you lose companies or you lose opportunity, it's something which doesn't affect you that massively. It can be a real problem for MSPs if they take on, let's say, 2 or 3 large clients, because one of those goes and you've lost 33% of your business. So spreading across the different sectors and spreading across the different company sizes, I think would definitely be a good idea.
And so, if someone's starting off and they're thinking of diversifying, and I love that specific strategy of, the large and small ratio, what would your answer be to taking on any client, especially if you quote unquote need them? What would your response be to that, Craig?
I think it's really difficult early on, because when you're first starting out, all business in your eyes is good business. I don't think that is true. And I will be honest and say that through experience, I can tell you that there's a phrase we use here called being a busy fool, which is you can feel busy, you can feel as if you're generating a lot of money, but actually when you look at it, you're really not. So I think it's important when you start to be clear about the clients that you want, be clear about the sort of business that you want to provide, so that the sort of service you want to provide, the businesses you want to support. I'll give an example. We don't do any work within a retail sector, for example, just something that we found that didn't suit us, didn't work for us. The hours of operation were very strange. So we don't do retail. So pin down the kind of clients you want, the nature of the business that they're in, and then try to stick to it. You will be tempted. The devil works in a mysterious way, and he will tempt you with clients which appear to be great, and then they turn out not to be. But by the time you've realized that, you'll have put a lot of time, a lot of effort, chased a lot of unpaid invoices. So try to be clear and stick to the plan.
And these decisions are also really important early on, because you want to also set a precedent with your clientele. At the end of the day, these are also your existing clients are the ones that are going to be referring you also to new clients, and building that reputation, giving that value, making sure you're giving that value to your client is really something that you want to make sure you're able to do early on, and not, like you said, just take on any client just for the sake of saying, I got to have an income right now. I got to make this happen and I'll make it work. And I think that's a very big challenge for a lot of companies that are just starting off, a lot of people that are just starting off especially.
I know Frank's going to add to this, but I can tell you as a fact, and I can tell you from my experience, every single time my little gut or my spider sense has tingled to tell me that this is not a good client, I've taken them on, because it's usually come at a bad time. You know, the books are looking a bit empty or whatever. I have regretted it every single time. So find your niche, find the service you want to offer, identify your client, and then try to stick to it. Because, as I say, if you deviate from that, you will get burned.
Sticking to your gut, even when you might have some practical reason, you know, not to, is strong advice, especially with what's going on today. Frank, how would you respond? Would you take on any client? Do you have any stories to share?
Yeah, like Craig, very much echo almost identically what he says. Initially, when you're first starting out, the temptation is there to grab everything, because you need turnover. You need to put food on the table. I've got 2 cats, and they've got to be kept in the way that they're accustomed to. So of course, you know, I've got to put food on their tables as well. So yeah, the temptation is to grab everybody there. But it's going to sound arrogant, but not every client's a good fit for you. Generally, we tend to have a bit of discussion when a new client is indicating that they may want to come on board. We have a bit of discussion with them, and during that time, you can sort of pick up some trends in what they say and how they say things and whatever. That you get a bit of a gut feel, like Craig's spidey sense. You get a gut feel to say, well, yeah, these guys may be good, these guys may not be good. You really do want to work with clients that are good for you. You work in a mesh. I've used the term trusted advisor quite often, and I know Craig's works in the same way. We want to be your trusted advisor. So if we can work really well with you, you will trust us, we'll have a great time. If we can't work well with you, then really the relationship's for naught.
I agree with that. And if you don't mind, just picking up on a question there in the comments from Mark Abrams, who was asking some particular signs that you might be able to identify in a bad client. I think it's difficult, go with your gut, but here's the way I do it in a very sort of helicopter view sense. If someone's talking to you about IT being a cost, and it's something that they're sort of resigned to the fact that they've got to pay for, and they do so reluctantly, they're probably not a very good client. If you talk to people who see IT as an investment and see that it's going to add value to their business, then they're probably the better kind of client to go for.
Solid.
Yes, exactly.
And what would you say? So, you know, on the one hand is taking on the clients who might not be a good fit, and, you know, they're talking about the price and they're not seeing the value. When you're talking with a good client, what are some things that you might have done earlier on in terms of being technical, in terms of the nature of an IT, being very technical, it is the nature of the job, and discussing the technicalities and the specifics and the details with the client? Craig?
For me, I think the bullet point really is interesting, being technical with clients. That is the one thing that I don't do. I don't think being overly technical with clients is helpful. I don't think it ingratiates you to the client. I think actually, if anything, it can make the client feel unwelcomed into your world. So actually, I take the opposite view, which is you're there as a translator. I may have mentioned this before, but the Babel fish, for those that have read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you put it in your ear and it converts language. You are converters of language. You go to a customer, you talk to them about their business, you find out their challenges, you go away and you convert that into technical language you need in your organization. What you don't need is a long, complicated conversation about encryption and VPN with a client who just has some problems they need you to solve. So be as limited on the technical language as you possibly can, And yeah, I think Frank might agree with that one. What do you reckon, Frank?
Absolutely. I'll echo that. Plus, any of you young guns out there who are just getting into the game for, you know, maybe early days or just getting into the game now, please don't be technical to the client. People, their eyes glaze over. They don't understand what you're talking about. Have a chat with them. Find out, well, we need somebody to work from home and we need to connect it back into the office and use the services, you know, and files and whatever back in the office or in the cloud environment. Well, immediately, you know, you've got probably an internet connection at the worker's site. You've got a VPN connection and you've got some sort of border security box that you're implementing. You don't have to tell people, oh, look, you know, we have to put in VPN and, you know, we're going to run an IPsec. No, we'll make sure that it works. And that's all you really got to do. And that goes back to the trusted advisor bit. You know, you tell them, yeah, we'll make it work. It's going to cost around about this much. Are you happy with that? Yes, we are. Great. Leave it with us. It'll be ready in 2 weeks. Done. Exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more. And also know your audience. Sometimes you have to realize who you're working with within the company. If you're working with somebody who's managing IT that actually could know the lingo, even then you still want to be able to speak at eye level. And sometimes you're talking to somebody who really has no technical background, and it's not going to help you to throw all this verbiage at him at the end of the day or her.
Yeah. You can also feed that back to the bullet point about attracting clients in COVID-19. Some of the people that we've attracted recently, and we've during this last few months, we've taken on a handful of new clients, which is really good. But actually, some of those have come to us because the IT incumbent that they had at the outbreak of COVID wasn't helpful, wasn't listening, and was being overtly technical and rather rigid in their approach to how things needed to be done. And actually, when something as global as COVID hits, what you don't want is someone that's rigid in their approach. You want someone that's flexible in their approach. And so now that they've gone through the COVID situation, they're coming out the other side, reevaluating that very technical, very rigid IT company that they've had up to now and thinking, I'm not sure they're right for us in the future.
And how would you define trusted advisor? What specifically is a trusted advisor? And, you know, because the IT is providing all these services, they're thinking about all the things that they got to set up, remote connections and all that. What would be the definition, first and foremost, Craig and Frank? How would you define trusted advisor?
I think for me, it's relatively easy. I use a description of how I talk to my suppliers. So we buy services in from other suppliers, you know, internet services, telephony services, those kind of things. And my suppliers have had to realign their understanding because most of them are channel sales people. And I'll say to them, well, we've got this client that wants the service, and they'll say, well, how can I help you get them across the line? And my answer is, well, there isn't a need for you to get them across the line. They're ready to go. They just want the paperwork. And you get to that point when you're a trusted advisor, because I will have already said to them, I think you need a better internet connection. I think you need a leased line. Here is what we want to recommend to you. Is that okay? And they then say, yes. It's not a very sales orientated process. It's a conversation. So if someone is taking your advice and saying, well, Craig, if that's what you recommend and that's what you believe to be exactly what we want, then I think we should go with that. If you have that response, you are by definition, in my opinion, a trusted advisor.
Exactly. And I'll just add to that really quickly is that I define the trusted advisor role that I can walk up to any one of my clients, say, give me your credit card. They give me their credit card and they trust me not to spend anything on their credit card. That's it. Simple. Okay. So it's that whole line of trust. And just really quickly, Nicole, this is Wasabi Cat. Okay.
I see in the chat, Nicole and Frank are talking a lot about cats, so it's good. How much is going on all in one webinar?
She's my my trusted advisor.
I also think you know, one of the beautiful perspectives and paradigm shifts, I'll say, of trusted advisor is that a lot of, you know, worry, especially in COVID, is how do I get clients? How do I get my business? How do I generate sales? Well, if you first and foremost aren't even thinking about sales and marketing, you're just thinking about advising based on the needs, based on the problems, based on the solutions that your potential client needs. How does that shift the paradigm in terms of being able to attract clients by focusing on problems, by listening to the clients, by being the advisor for them. And it's not about that need to get the clients, Craig.
Well, I think that's everything, really. A lot of technical people are very, very worried about selling. They become paralyzed at the idea of selling. I think just don't think about selling. You are providing solutions to people. So what you do is, I found out the other day that this is maybe a UK thing, but anyway, you have two of these, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them appropriately. Do twice as much listening as you do talking. And if you go and listen to customers and hear about their problems and challenges, then often situations will just present themselves. A tiny example, I said to one of my clients the other day, let's have a quick Zoom call, chat about what's been going on and the work we've been doing. He said, that's great. Oh, no, hang on a minute. The Wi-Fi in the boardroom's really bad. So can we just have a normal telephone call? Ah, Wi-Fi in the boardroom's not very good, you say. I've got a solution for that. Can I talk to you about it? Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much. I've not gone in to sell Wi-Fi, but I've come out with a Wi-Fi sale. I hope that makes sense.
It's a perfect story. I love that story. I think that's something for a lot of people to, think about and listen to. Frank, what do you have to say about in terms of listening to clients, focusing on the problems, sharing cat stories?
Well, if you don't, sharing cat stories, yeah. Well, she's over there doing something or other at the moment. You've got to listen to your clients. They're the ones, at the end of the day, ultimately pay your bills. And if you can't get the work straight, you can't listen to your client, or you do what the client doesn't want because you think you know better, you're going to lose that client. You've got to be responsive to the client. You've got to stay with them, listen, and like Craig, offer, oh, Wi-Fi is no good in the boardroom. Have we got a deal for you? Sort of thing. So you get that incremental sale while you're there too, just by listening to what they do. One of my clients had bad Wi-Fi at home, and they were complaining now with homeschooling of the kids through this lockdown phase that we're going through. They were having dramas with that. So it was just like, well, we can fix your Wi-Fi at home. Oh, can you do that? Well, yeah, of course. So we did. And, we've got a really happy client that now will eventually, once we get out of COVID, is going to refurb their whole hotel, because I do a lot of hospitality clients, as I said. They're going to refurb their hotel because they do need a little bit of an upgrade, but they're doing it 1 or 2 years earlier than what they normally would have done it. So it is very important to listen to your clients. Very.
And we got a poll coming up, but just before we send it, one other question. So, right, so you were talking about solving problems. Listen to clients in a one-on-one interaction. How much time would you guys advise, would you suggest an MSP IT service provider focus on, investing in marketing and the outbound, inbound trusted advisor, whether it's direct mail, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a short webinar, whether it's video, social media? What would your approach be in terms of outreach to attract clients as a trusted advisor in terms of investing amounts of time?
I think for me, there's a couple of things to bear in mind. Firstly, if you're looking to be a trusted advisor, then anything that you push out through social media and other marketing channels should be around advice, not selling. So it's not, here's today's deal, $5 off, €5 off, whatever it is. It should be about, here's some information you might find interesting. Here's a thing I found that you might not know. Here are some concerns we found about this, that, and the other. Those would be the kind of marketing messages, perhaps, because it builds your reputation as a trusted purveyor of information. Secondly, I think you should do as much time as you can afford to do, but you should also make sure that it's regular and not a singular activity. So marketing should be something that you do regularly, not when you have the time. There's nothing worse than finding an IT company's Twitter feed and the last Twitter post was 6 months ago. That just looks awful. So actually you can use Hootsuite and Buffer and things like that. Invest an hour, find some articles, write some blogs yourself, stack them up so they go out through the week or the month. Maybe write one longer blog article for your website. Maybe do one little 90-second video piece that goes out on YouTube. But you can do them out of hours when you've got time and stack them to go out through your social media channels. But if you start and you do an hour a week, keep doing an hour a week. If you increase it to 2 hours a week, Keep doing 2 hours a week. Don't do an hour and then nothing for 6 months. That's just not going to work.
Small bits consistently.
Keep the
In
consistency.
advance.
That consistency is everything.
Yep.
Huge. That's really, really useful, really valuable advice that if people take it away, it's a little bit consistently chunking in advance. Frank, how do you think about that? How would you approach that?
Well, pre-COVID was slightly different. It was more the informational newsletters that would go out once a month, some bits and pieces on social to say, well, this is the new product here. Hey, this is great here. Let's look at that. And just the general marketing role. Within COVID, it's been a little bit different. The socials kept up. The newsletters have kept up. They've been a little bit smaller, but a little bit more frequent. But what I really love to do, I'm a people person. I love to talk. And if you can't tell that, well, I'm sorry. I do. So I have a lot of business owners that I know almost personally, because I've been dealing with them for 8 or 10 years. So you get to know them. So you ring them up and you just do what I call a social welfare call. And you pick up the phone. Oh, how's the kids' schooling going? You know, you're coping with your homeschooling. You know, how are you going? Is the business going okay? What's your occupancy? Again, hotel-based. You know, can we help in any particular way, shape or form? But you start off as a bit of a social call and you intermingle some bits and pieces in there. I have one guy that loves to talk politics with me. So, hey, knock yourself out. Let's talk politics. I'm a bit of a political animal when it comes down to talking politics. So I'm in for a good debate. It's always fun. But you keep that interaction up, but then keep it at slightly arm's length. Don't get too familiar. But you will know how far you can push a particular conversation with people, but certainly don't get inappropriate. No, that's the wrong thing to do. Right. But yeah, just do that and just do it all the time. Like I might do a tech call here, play with the cats there, make a 5-minute social welfare call, then do another tech call, social welfare call. Oh, I've got to feed the cats. And, you know, you run your day that way, or I've got to go out and see a client or whatever. You run the day that way. So chunking it down, frequent operations, you're always keeping in it, but don't slow it down, because what will be noticed if you stop talking to a client, they'll notice it straight away. So you've got to keep it up when you start it.
Yep. Love it. Brilliant. So, you know, we're talking about starting a business, getting new clients. We're actually curious if we're going to launch a poll right now. And I'm actually curious, you know, we're not going to do an actual bet here, but I am curious what, Isaac, what would your guess be? How long have you had your own MSP business for? If a poll is going to come up, let's see. Yeah, there it is. So it's, yeah, whether you haven't started 1 to 3 years.
While we wait for the answer for that, do you mind if I interject with a sort of related anecdote, which is yesterday I was completing some documents for a new client that we've taken on board. Birmingham in the UK was known as the workshop of the world. It contained a lot of places that would manufacture all sorts of things, large and small. We've taken on a company in the jewellery quarter, which by its name manufactures jewellery. I had to take a double look when I looked them up on Companies House, the register of companies in the UK, because I noticed that their year of incorporation was 1919. They have been in business for 101 years.
Wow.
So there you go.
That is amazing.
Yeah. They've actually been in business since 1786, but in that location and in that name, they have been in business since 1919. So there you go.
So, and the takeaway, Craig, what's the takeaway?
Well, the takeaway is they're clearly doing something right because they've been doing it since 1786. To put that into context, and I'm hoping this is right because otherwise I'm going to look really foolish, they started in business the year after the end of the American Civil War, I think, because that was 1776 to 1780. Oh, no, maybe even later. 1776 to 1782, something like that, 1781. So they've been around since just after the end of the American Civil War. So there you go.
So therefore, Yeah.
I hope they're running 2020 Wi-Fi and not 1919 Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, that's maybe why the Wi-Fi in the boardroom's not very good. It's 101 years old.
The
It was-
1919 Wi-Fi is 2 cans with a string between the two of them.
Yeah, it was that client. It was that client who has the problem with the Wi-Fi in the boardroom. So we've got to the heart of it. Yeah, it's 101 years old. There you go.
Now we know why.
You can stay in business through everything and through history. As a side note, the answer to the polls, maybe everybody sees this, is it's pretty much a mix between the majority of being in business 10 plus years and starting out 1 to 3. So we got a whole mix, but whether you're starting out, whether you've been in business for 10 plus years, all of this is beyond relevant and useful, considering Craig and Frank are rolling up clients left and right, just talking about people's Wi-Fi, what they need. And now let's get into the nitty gritty in terms of pricing. When you need a client, what would your advice be, Frank, in terms of pricing low versus pricing high? What would you say to someone asking in terms of pricing?
I just rolled my notes up, so I've got it right in front of me. No, pricing.
I believe you.
Yeah, thanks. Pricing, don't gouge, okay? Don't ask for too much. Be fair and offer fair services with it. We tend to chunk it down into little bits. We have the essential, if you like, which is basically covers Atera and WebRoot. We use WebRoot for our antivirus, which is done through Atera, through the single pane of glass there. And we do that. Then we have the next thing, and we would offer cloud services or server on site. We still do have a few clients that server on site. I know Craig likes to use more the cloud services. We've got some franchises that still insist on server on site. So we can't do too much about that, but where we can, we push cloud. And then we have the optional security packages and et cetera, et cetera. So you price it incremental. So in essence, they don't get one number and go, oh my God, this is huge. They get to choose what they put in. It's the McDonald's model. I'll have a Big Mac, thanks. Oh, would you like fries with that? Oh yeah, would you like a Coke or a shake with that? It's just that little upsell, and it works. And they've been doing it since the 50s, and it's worked perfectly for them for 70 odd years. So it's a good model to go with. So price it low, don't be too, not low. Price it, you have to eat, okay? You have to put food on the table. You've got to feed your pets. And my 2 cats are voracious cats, but you've got to feed your pets. And you've got to do that. But then you're not taking food out of somebody else's mouth. Because if you do, they're going to look around for somebody cheaper. So, yeah.
The challenge with pricing too low is you end up in a race to the bottom. There can only be one winner in a race to the bottom. And you really don't want it to be you, because you go back to that problem of not being able to put food on the table. And there's a phrase which I've heard before, which is someone will say, well, on paper, they're profitable. Well, the problem with on paper is that means they're not profitable, because if you measure them only on paper, then, okay, you just about make them profitable. I play a little trick, which is I do low and high, which is I build my services around individual pricing for individual services on a month-by-month basis. So it means that any given service can look very low price or good value, as I term to use it. So it means, a license for this or a license for that, or some support for a user or whatever, is individually priced quite low. Most of the services are somewhere around £10 at current exchange rates. I think that's probably about $10. I'm joking, but it's not far off one-to-one per unit. But the thing is that those small numbers, when you take a number of those services and you then extrapolate up with users, can turn into quite a high monthly recurring revenue. So if each person requires 5 things and each of those things is $10, well, that's $50 per person. If there's 10 of those people in an organization, that's $500. If there's 20, that's $1,000 a month, all from services which individually are only priced around the $10 mark. So I think you can do a whole variety of things. And a final thing that I do is, like Frank, we provide a range of services which are if you like, our services, and then also a range of supplemental and supporting services. So I always make that clear when providing a price to a client. Here is the price that you're effectively paying for us. So that's support, our advice, our commitment, our monitoring. And then here is a selection of prices for all of the other things, office licenses, firewall licenses, things like that. So the customer sees there is a distinction between the services that you offer and the services they would have to have anyway.
And Frank, what would you say in terms of, you know, structuring the package, having the package, you know, not focusing on price? What would be your advice there?
Oh, we do that too. I mean, we offer people, you know, if they want a whole package to do whatever, we just structure something up, take components out of everywhere, put it together. There you go. So be totally flexible with that. So yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way as well. You know, it works. And as Craig says, you know, $5 here, $5 there, $500 at the end of the month. That's a good month.
And we're getting some questions around specific numbers, examples, structured packages. What would you? Are there specific examples we can give?
Yeah, Frank, Craig, I'll leave that one to you.
Thanks, mate. I got in too late. Well, it really depends on the sector that you work in. In one of our verticals, which is the hotel market, the hospitality market, we have a fixed price every month that every property pays, or every property that wants support from us pays. And that's basically 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7-day-a-week support by phone. I found that these guys don't want to use a help desk, which is a real pain. They prefer to talk on the phone, they'll text, they use Messenger, but they won't use a help desk, which is a bit odd. But anyway, so they're packaged around that, and with that they get antivirus flat and our remote and on-site services, and that comes in at around about the 250 Australian dollars per month just for that. Then we have the add-ons where we will put in firewall, and I, off the top of my head, I can't remember the price of an individual license for a firewall, but I think it's $8-10 a month or something like that. And we'll just add the appropriate number of users. Now, all those properties there for that price, there's only about 4 or 5 employees there. So really, they're not huge. There's many of them, but they're not huge. For the architectural firms and whatever, we've got a few accountants, architectural firms, legal people and whatever in there, that's priced on a per seat basis. And again, I go in there and I can price it anything from about $15 a seat per month to about $25 a seat per month, depending on what they want, how they want it delivered, what their parameters are. They might only want 9 to 5. They might want 24/7. So all those are extra factors that you have to price in. But a standard 9 to 5, you're probably looking about $15 to $25 for our services, plus a web route, client. Yeah, and that's about it. So for that. So that gives them that flexibility. And then whatever else I put on top, for example, Microsoft 365, etc. Well, then whatever that license is, $8, $10, $12 for that one license, we add on to the top and we go from there. That's in the marketplace in Australia. Okay, the individual marketplaces around the world, although similar, will vary.
It's obvious that you both have a very a structured way of managing your pricing. Just out of curiosity, and I think this is relevant for a lot of the people on the line, how often are you adjusting your pricing? Like what is the idea behind adjusting prices if you are doing it? And I think this is something that can really help a lot of the people that are listening in right now.
We do an annual review. Now that doesn't mean that prices will change every year, but we at least review to see whether they're still current and see whether they're relevant. And for us, the reason to have a structured approach, similar to Frank, because we, like Frank, we charge, whenever there's a thing that could be charged for, we try to put a charge down for it, whether it be a small charge or a higher charge. So we will build our fee structure around per network. So we look after the things on your network, per user, that's support, per firewall device, per antivirus instance, per Office 365 or Microsoft 365 license, etc., etc., etc. And so what that does is it means you can do a couple of things. You can create a simple spreadsheet so that when you're pricing services for a customer, it's really easy because you've already got the grid, or as we call it, the matrix. You put the numbers in. How many users do you have, Mr. Potential Customer or Mrs. Potential Customer? Oh, 23, no problem. 23, boom, whole thing populates. You get an answer at the end of it, finished. But it also means if that person or business grows to 27 or 32, then you review that on a quarterly basis and the prices will change accordingly. Conversely, if they've lost staff or the business contracts, it's quite right that you then reduced from 23 to 18 or 15. So that's how we offer our pricing. We make it flexible to suit the client's needs at that moment in time.
Amazing.
Brilliant. I mean, that is very, very useful for people. Where there will be a replay so you can listen to that a few more times because there's a lot of wisdom in with what Frank and Craig are sharing. Really appreciate it. We have a lot of questions coming in, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. But maybe just before we go to the Q&A, we would love to hear some raw, no holds barred, no holding back, epic fail stories. Frank or Craig, whoever wants to start this party off.
Craig.
I'll make 2 points. I will tell you about a fail or some fails, but here's the honest truth of it. Frank and I would do many things differently, but actually I think it's really important that we've had those failures because you learn so much from those failures. At the time, you want the ground to swallow you up and say, I wish I could get away from this and I clearly made a terrible mistake and it's terrible. However, there is so much learning that comes from doing something wrong. If all you did in life was just be successful and nothing went wrong, I don't think you would learn very much at all. So having an epic fail is part of life. Have them, learn from them and move on. Epic fails for me, not understanding the value of suitable tools to help and assist with my business. Now, again, it wasn't around when I started my business, but a tool like Atera is absolutely brilliant. The mistake I made was not finding a tool like Atera back in the day to assist me, because that would make life easier. Something that manages your devices, something that manages your tickets, all in a single pane of glass, all easy to see. That's great. I, like Frank, have also been down a voice over IP failure, which is early adoption, market wasn't ready, technology wasn't ready. That was an epic fail. So those are the things that I've learned from, but that learning has now made me who I am today and someone who feels fairly confident enough to talk to people like you watching this about, you know, how I think things could be done. And hopefully there's a bit of gravitas to go with that because I've had those failures.
It's a solid perspective. Frank.
Oh, sorry. Wholeheartedly agree. Yes, absolutely. Again, using immature technologies was probably one of my worst fails. Although, you know, as I said, they haven't really been epic, but as Craig said, there's that hole that opens up that you just wants to swallow you up. And the only thing you can think of is to jump in there and close over the top. But trusting and this is the one that hurt me the most, is trusting an employee with a little bit, entrusting an employee with a little bit too much knowledge and too much control led me to losing 4 clients. And they were good strategic clients at the time. So know your client, have a great relationship with your client, and hence the trusted advisor thing, because they won't go anywhere else. They won't move with the other tech that will go out there and whatever, and rotate your techs through a site. So, you know, you have good documentation, good paperwork, rotate the tech through the site to make sure that you don't have that issue happening. Okay, but VoIP, yeah, like Craig, yes, got into it way too early, and spectacular fails there.
You appreciate you sharing your stories, the transparency, the honesty, the authenticity. We got a lot of questions coming in. Isaac, what would be a question that you would throw to our brilliant, talented, successful MSPs right now? There's a lot.
I have attributed myself to 2 of them if you want.
Please, here we go.
Well, somebody asks, fixed pricing, unlimited hours versus per use hourly. Eric, we currently offer an hour bank solution and charge for overages, but are considering unlimited. Here's the deal in summary. A lot of MSPs and value-added resellers are nervous about going to an unlimited eat as much as you like model, because what they sometimes forget is that that is offered within a framework. You're not just saying to somebody, yeah, just phone us up 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just use our service whenever you want. There is a framework of support. So if you're going to offer unlimited support, that is within a framework. Ours, for example, says that none of the pieces of technology in your business, mostly computers and laptops, should be more than 3.5 years old. And if they are, they fall outside of that level of unlimited support. They also say things like servers should have a current warranty with them. All devices should have antivirus software, and so on and so forth. So what you're doing is you're creating a framework within which you offer your service. So if you're nervous about offering an unlimited service, just bear in mind, you get the opportunity to create that box within which that unlimited service sits. So make sure that you're not offering unlimited service to support computers that are 9.5 years old, servers that have got, you know, Windows NT running on them, and so on and so forth. Those are the kind of things that you should do. So hopefully that gives Eric some sort of reply to that.
And just to add to that, that's a really important thing that you state. We do exactly the same thing. Every box that we look after has to have an antivirus on it. Every box that we look after has to be under 5 years old. Every box that we look after has to be at least up to the current level of OS. Now, once we take it over, we will ensure that it stays at the current level. But and at that point, and if it's not, then we have a small charge that we say, well, we're going to upgrade you from Windows 7 to Windows 10. I did a Windows XP the other day. Oddly enough, I had to retire it. It was just ridiculously bad hardware. So we had to retire it and buy another one. But you can't just take that on. You know, that will kill you. It really will. So yeah, very valid point there, Craig. Very.
There's another question from Dell, which is sort of related. If you don't, I mean, I'm sorry to sort of take over the questions, if that's okay. But
It's great.
Go for it.
Dell is saying, what client types or project types are best for building credibility as an MSP? I mean, this is a personal take from myself, but one of the things that I always feel is risky as an MSP or anyone in the IT space is that you can accidentally sometimes be seen as what I would call the plumber, you know, that kind of low level, that person that just connects some cables up and plugs a few things in, that sort of low level stuff. So yes, we do all of that. And yes, we make sure that that works. But actually what we're often talking to our clients about are business value services. So we have a lot of clients who have seen the value of moving in to use SharePoint for their data storage and not have on-site servers. We begin a conversation that sort of, I consider that a higher level project. We also, although I've just talked about how VoIP was an epic fail because we learned a lot from that, we now offer a lot of connected VoIP services. We're using Microsoft Teams voice. And so that allows us to have a more consultative business conversation, and it's less about the plumbing and the plugging things in. Those, I think, are the kind of avenues that you could take to build that credibility, and hopefully that's some good advice.
Also, there's a question from Solomon. If you reach out to either Ari or Isaac, I happily send you some documentation and sample contracts and whatever that we use, just to sort of get you a bit of a start, or you can use it as a template if you like, modify it to your environment and the area that you operate in, and yeah, certainly do that. So if you reach out to the guys, more than happy to send that.
I see another here from George. I apologize, George. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your surname for fear of making a terrible, terrible mistake. But George asks, how do you get new clients during COVID-19? Look, we could spend an entire hour answering that question. But one of the things which I'll be honest with you about is this. Most of the people watching this will be in the MSP space, the value-added retail space, some sort of IT industry. if you're watching this, you'll be ahead of your competitors, because your competitors who don't care won't watch things like this because they don't want to grow and they don't want to learn. There will be, and I've already seen it, a huge amount of IT companies who, for a whole variety of reasons, unfortunate, poor planning, bad management, will not make it through this particular period. So one of the avenues that you can look at as an MSP to grow your business is to make sure that you're aware of other people, other clients who are perhaps being poorly serviced by an existing IT partner, and you will hopefully be able to look at them as an avenue through which you could begin a conversation. And all you would do is just act professionally, demonstrate the services that you offer, and show that you could be a good alternative to that current incumbent. Somebody also mentioned in the questions that very few people are willing to change their IT partner, and that's absolutely true. It takes a lot for someone to change their IT partner, but if there's change that's going to occur, it's going to occur at a very significant point like this. So be on the lookout for people who are not happy with their current provider, and that would be an avenue that you could pursue.
Yeah, in the chat also from Ramin Ahmed, how do you deal with a client that wants to purchase their own product from Amazon, etc.? You'll always hit people like that.
Yeah.
What we have in our contract is that you buy the hardware from us, we give you free installation. Simple. We add $50 onto the top of the unit. Installation is dead easy these days. Go in there, plug it in, do whatever we need to do and go. Okay. If they do that, then there's a $150 charge. And this is particular to Australia. There's a $150 charge to install equipment that you didn't purchase from us. You're more than welcome to plug it in yourself, but if you break it, there's an hourly rate to fix it. And to support it, if it's a hardware issue, you throw it back to the client and just say, well, you purchased this from Amazon, they have to honor that warranty. If you purchase it from us, we take care of everything. But because not, you send it back to Amazon, let them do whatever, bring it back, and then we'll come in and then fit, any reset up or any plugging in or whatever, we'll do that under your normal contract. So yeah, that's one way. Well, that's the way we do it anyway.
If we're continuing the trend of picking out questions, here's one. Paul, no surname. Paul asks, do you try to get a liaison per client that can do some hands-on local support when your clients are very remote? Or does this look bad to the client? I mean, here's the deal. Look, Frank is in Australia. For those that have not noticed or looked at an atlas recently, Australia is quite a big place. So he's not going to be able to just drive to a client. The UK is not a big place, but even so, driving 3-4 hours to get to people is unreasonable. And here's another truth about MSPs is I work in the UK with a lot of other MSP businesses. You tend to find people will buy because of the geography. People in New York or Sydney will want people to support them in New York and Sydney. So if you're not in those places, I would not consider you a direct competitor to those people. London, from me, is about an hour and a half, a 2-hour drive away. And there are MSP providers in London who I've reached out to and I've known through other groups and said, look, we've just got a little problem. Something needs patching in. We've got a couple of things that just need your attention. Could you be the eyes on site? And for an hourly fee, they've been quite happy to send somebody along and sort that out for us. There have been some questions in the Q&A about, what do I do if I can't employ the right people? There was a question about working in the Midwest and so on and so forth. Use other IT people where you can. And I would use a basic rule that if you're more than, a few hundred or 500 miles away from someone, you're not going to be a direct competitor. So reach out to them, work with them. They might value the opportunity of doing a few hours a month for you as an income generator, and you might welcome that in reverse. So that would be an answer.
We do that quite a bit actually too with when we can't get interstate, like for example now with COVID, we just can't fly. I haven't flown since March, well, commercially anyway. And it's really hard. I mean, look at the map of Australia. Between Victoria, where we are, which is bottom right, not that little island, but just above that on the mainland, we've got clients over in Western Australia, which is 2,000 kilometres away, okay? And we go up north to the upper echelons of Queensland, and that's about 2,500 kilometres, 3,000 kilometres away. Oh, sorry, Brisbane's 2,000 kilometres and plus another 1,500 odd kilometres further up. And we've got clients in those areas too, including New Zealand, which is 3 hours that way. opposite to WA, and then Fiji, which is just up a little bit that way. They're all long distances. So working with the locals there, giving them work, understanding that you have an MOU in place or an agreement in place that says, they're my client, don't steal them. We'll happily give you, 100% of the earnings or 95% of the earnings, work for a swap here, after in the way would look after them ourselves. So working with people like that is really.
Oh, we may have lost Frank. He might come
Frank?
back. Oh, you're back, Frank. We lost you there for a moment.
He's back.
Hopefully he's back. He will catch up with us in a minute. When you catch up with us, Frank, we'll be with you. Just looking at this other question here. Let me have a look. There was one about Mike Greco. What's the best way to find new clients? Is it blogs, social media, website, cold calling, etc.? The answer, Mike, is all of the above. The thing is, to use another analogy, the Acropolis in Athens was, because it hasn't got a roof anymore, it was held up with lots and lots of individual pillars, not one great big central pillar in the middle like an umbrella. Marketing's a bit like that. You shouldn't focus on just doing one thing in the middle. You should have pillars of marketing. So you should be doing blogs and social media and website activity and cold calling and white papers and this and that and the other. All of those things should be running concurrently, using your time and using the ability to stack those items so that they go out over a schedule. But the other thing to do is don't forget personal interactions. There is an opportunity for you to attend business meetings. I still have clients from 20 years ago that I originally met at breakfast networking events. I suspect that they're a kind of a global thing. I know they happen in North America, they happen here, they happen in Australia, and probably all points in between. But people get up early in the morning before they used to go to work pre-COVID, and they would meet and they would take breakfast together and they would chat, and there will be an opportunity for you to do a little elevator pitch, and most rooms would contain 20, 30, 35 people. And over time you build up relationships, and then they bring opportunities to you. Oh, I met a guy the other day that's having a problem with their IT. I met a lady who's looking to expand their phone system. And you then get opportunities, referrals through that method. So all of the electronic methods to find new business are perfectly valid. They should run all of the time. But also go and do physical things. Put yourself in places where you meet people and build relationships, because a lot of our business will come through word of mouth referrals. So put yourself in a place where those referrals are being given.
Am I still online here, guys?
Yep, you're still with us, Frank?
Sounds like it.
Okay. It's just that I'm on my 4G because my high-speed internet was down for maintenance. Anyway, it's just come back up on mine now, actually. But there's a question in the Q&A from Nicole. Hey, Nicole, cat lady. How can an MSP benefit me? A one-person show and not get overwhelmed with alerts, etc. Well, you can be smart about your alerts, so you can customize your alerts. You can run I started off as a one-person MSP. Mind you, that was probably about 14 years ago, 15 years ago when we started, and the marketplace wasn't as mature as it is with the Atera product. I love the Atera product. It just makes life so much easier. So you can do you can minimize the alerts. You can add automation with the alerts and only get the critical alerts to come through to you. And I suggest that that's what you should do. It's just the critical alerts, because everything else you can do whatever. But set yourself up really quickly. I'm running off my iMac, 3 27-inch screens. So one there, one there, one there. So I've got a hell of a lot of real estate. Whether you run Windows or a Mac, it doesn't matter. If you're running Windows, get yourself a couple of really big screens, curved, flat, whatever you want. Put them up there, have your single pane of glass running there, just constantly looking at the alerts while you're working away. I've got my social stuff, happening that side, and messages and all that sort of stuff. I've got my database and all my regular things that I look up, info from my clients or whatever that side, and that's my main working space. So you work smart, you can do it real easy. Take on contractors if you can, 2 or 3 hours a week, or 2 or 3 hours a day. whatever your budget can suit. And, that will help you get in there. The more people you have working, the more work you get through, the more clients you can attract. If you're doing it all yourself, you've got to market yourself. You're not going to have any time to market because you're constantly fixing problems, problem that I had as well. So, there's a little bit of money that has to be invested, but generally it will give you a good return.
Yeah, true.
It's at almost at the top of the hour. We've had over 200 people who are still asking questions, which is pretty cool, which says a lot about how valuable Frank and Craig's insights and advice are. Craig and Frank, you guys want to give final words of advice or answer a question just before we go?
Yeah, I'll hang mine on a question from, and again, if I get this wrong, I'm really sorry. Itzy Gandel, I think, is where it is. What would you answer for a client that tells you, I can buy new hardware every year for the price I pay you a year for IT? Well, I just want to use that as an in to talk just briefly and finally about the fact that no is not a swear word or a dirty word. You are permitted to say to clients or prospects, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm terribly sorry. You have a great day. You will inevitably find somebody that will want to work with you, but that person isn't going to be me. So what I would end with is saying, you have value as a service provider. You have knowledge and skill that other people don't have. Hold on to that. And if you are running your own business, be aware that it's your business. No one is telling you how you should run it and how you need to do it. I appreciate there are risks and there's always anxiety at the beginning when you're trying to earn money and there's a desire to just get whatever you can. But like we said right at the top of the previous hour, it's your business. You decide on the framework. You elect how you want that to work. And you go and find clients that you like working with and who also like working with you. That's what I would do.
Exactly. And just to follow on with that in closing, again, do not be too scared to say no. Just wait till they get the latest crypto and they're struggling to get their data back, and then you can negotiate a cost or a price then.
That person has fallen into the trap which we spoke of earlier, is they're only seeing IT as the plumbing. They don't understand the fact that, okay, I can buy a computer, but how are you going to make it work? How are you going to protect yourself online? All they've done is they just bought the plumbing. They bought the pipes. They've not bought any value added element of what the IT can bring to them. And that's where your skill set is as an MSP, as a value added reseller, or someone within the IT space.
Tim, thanks very much for that comment in the Q&A. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Guys, we're having a lot of fun. We could probably easily, I bet, and it would be fun for all of us to spend another hour, maybe even 2 hours until the last person stays on. It could even be 3 hours. You guys have so much value, you have so many stories, so many insights. I just want to thank you, Craig and Frank, for taking the time, for sharing your insights and brilliance. You guys are, running successful, busy companies. So we just wanted to thank you. Thank you, Isaac, for being the awesome co-host. Thank you, everybody from all over the world, literally, who showed up today live, and wishing you the best day, best week ever. And thanks again.
And stay tuned for the recording.
Cheers.
There will be a recording sent out.
Just quickly, Nicole, reach out to Ari or Isaac for a copy of those contracts. Happy to send them to you. Yeah, we could talk all night, guys, but it's 3 a.m. Melbourne time. And unless you don't want me to go and see a client tomorrow morning, let's keep on going. Go on, bring it on.
That's awesome. 3 o'clock in the morning, Frank. That's impressive. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go. Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.